Welcome to Voices from Below, a podcast where we share the real stories and experiences of miners. Our aim is to foster understanding and positive change by highlighting personal experiences and insights without focusing on specific individuals or organizations. The views shared here are personal and not necessarily those of the podcast team. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to Voices from Below. Today, we're talking with Darryl, who's been an operator and is now a deputy in underground coal, which he's been in for 28 years. Darryl, thank you so much for joining us today.
No worries, mate. Good to be here.
Yeah, so could you start off by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your journey so far in mining?
Yeah, name's Darryl. Started underground coal 28 years ago in a small mine as a contractor, doing more or less belt installs and belt retractions in pillar panel. I was there for about 8 years and then decided to go to a longwall mine and get some more experience. And I spent about 12 years there at a longwall mine. Did my deputy certificate there. And have since moved on, and I'm back doing place change and pillars at the moment. So, yeah, it's been a fair journey.
Got it. And what would you say affected those changes, right? From going to long wall and then going to pillar, like what was the main contributing factors that made you switch to each?
Well, coming from the small coal mine, which was a pillar mine, board and pillar, and place change, I actually wanted to go and see how longwall mine works and actually operate the longwall.
Yeah. From where you grew up, was this a pretty common career path that most kids went into or wanted to go into or something, or what exactly would you say?
Mate. I've grown up in a small coal mining town, so everyone most people you're related to all work in the coal mine. So whether you're an operator or a tradesman, diesel fitter, my son's a diesel fitter in the coal mines now. My brother's a diesel fitters. My brother-in-law's a diesel fitters. Yeah, so it's just something that that's the main employer are the coal mines. So that's other than that, there's not too much other work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and your brother, he went into open cut. So what exactly got you? I mean, why underground? Why specifically did you choose that?
To be honest with you, mate, it was the only job I could get at the time. It wasn't a career path I thought I'd ever take, but wanting to get into the coal mines and obviously it's a good wage, it's a good lifestyle, so that's the way I ended up, and that's where I've just stayed.
Mm-hmm. So if, like, let's say other work had been opened up to you, what did you see yourself possibly going into, if not that, like at that age? Did you know, or was it just kind of uncertain?
No, I think I didn't really know what I wanted to do, mate. Like a lot of young people these days, you don't really know. You try a few different jobs, and I took to that one pretty quickly. So I loved it. I still do love it to a degree, but it's wearing thin these days. But it's a good job. It's good camaraderie. Underground miners look after each other. So it's I think when I do end up retiring, I'll miss that side of it. But I had no idea what I wanted to do, mate, and I sort of just fell into it and went from there.
Yeah. And do you think, at that point, or, even now, right? If those open cut jobs had been available at that point, do you think you would have taken that, or do you think your path would have basically been nearly identical?
No, I think I would have taken an open cut job for sure. I've actually, I pushed my son I didn't want him to go in the coal mines. I wanted him to be a carpenter or, electrician or something like that. But he was adamant he wanted to be a diesel fitter. So, but one thing I did stress is that I wanted him to work in the open cut, not the underground.
Yeah.
More opportunities in the open cut, I think. You sort of get pigeonholed a little bit once you're underground.
Yeah. So, I mean, could you describe a little bit more what you mean by, being pigeonholed?
I think, you see an underground fitter. He hasn't got much of a chance to get a job in the open cut. Totally different machines. Whereas I think a fitter from the open cut can adapt to the underground a little bit easier. Also, if you want a job in workshops, if you want to go work in town and you get sick of the mines, you've got that opportunity as well. Or working for transport companies, it's just you get a bit more variety on different machines, I think, in the open cut.
Yeah. So do you find that a reasonable amount of the guys that you're working with down there are coming from open cut, or is most people, did they just start and basically end underground?
Yeah, no, majority of guys just start underground. They're either come in as clean skins or they've got a trade background as a carpenter or plumber or something like that. So they're used to a day's work. So they come on, they want a job in the underground. So there's a lot of tradesmen working underground that have got trades right totally outside of coal mining.
Yeah. So for people who are not don't really know some of these roles that that we've talked about so far, could you describe what each role that you've done is? Specifically within underground.
Oh yes, so we're always talking about it as an operator. Continuous miner operator, longwall shearer operator, loader operator, shuttle cars, ram cars, virtually anything underground that you can operate or have operated. And going from there now as a deputy, I'm in charge of safety for a crew. So I've done a wide variety of jobs underground, and it's varying. As an operator, there's a lot of different machines you can operate. So, and the more you can operate, and the better you can operate them, the more work you'll always have.
So you talked about camaraderie down underground. Could you talk a little bit about the importance of others around you down there, and like kind of how that leads to a safe, or maybe I don't know, maybe not safe environment where you are.
Yeah, well, you need good camaraderie, and don't get me wrong, you're going to have guys that don't get along, whether that's different beliefs or different work ethics or whatever. But at the end of the day, you need to look after each other's back, because it's there's so many things down there that can get you. Roof, ribs, machines standing in the wrong spot. But you always need to be looking at if someone's standing in the wrong spot. You need your mate to say, "Hang on, get out of the road. It's not safe to stand there," or anything like that. You put any differences you have aside for the shift, and you work together so everybody comes out safe and goes home to their family. That's it. That's what you really need in a crew. I mean, the last thing you need in a crew is bickering and fighting and not looking out for each other, because that's just makes for an unsafe work environment.
Yeah. And would you say that that typically works out for the most part within crews, or is there basically always some issues with people not connecting or anything like that? Or
Yeah,
would you say that?
you can you do get a fair bit of disconnect sometimes, and a lot of newer guys that aren't used to the what would you say, the culture and the banter and the don't know how to take it. It takes them a while to, what do you say, assimilate to
Mhm.
that kind of, because it's a whole different language down there, and it's a whole different way of thinking. So you do every now and then someone just doesn't quite fit in, so we move them on to another crew where he might fit into that, the way they do things, if you know what I'm saying. The way
Yeah.
not every crew is the same. They You can go from crew to crew, and some crew they're different. They can have different, or just say, sense of humour, or some crews might be more serious than other crews. So it's just a matter of finding your home, mate. At the end of the day.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about some of the things that can cause injury or potentially fatalities. So
Yep.
from what you've observed or heard, or know from any other people in the industry, with underground specifically, with what you've done in coal, what would you say is typically the main contributors to injuries or potentially deaths, from what you mentioned or anything else?
I think inexperience and complacency carries a lot of weight underground as far
Mhm.
as injuries and deaths go. So I think you can look at a lot of mines' injury records, and a lot of those people would be you get your repeat offenders that just don't ever learn, and you also get your blokes that they're trying to do a good job without actually thinking about the task and not with not having the experience. They're injuring themselves a lot too, and we've got a lot of we call them clean skins in the industry at the moment because we just can't get enough experienced labour with a bit of a boom we're having here at the moment. So we call them yellow hats. They walk around with a yellow hat for 3 months, and yeah, I think that's one of the contributing factors as far as injuries and go.
Yeah. So do you think that, I mean, obviously I know there's, already a pretty good amount of, safety training and, protocols and everything in place, but do you think that, there could be anything that could, make that inexperience, be, less of an issue, that could be implemented, or is it just a fact of life down there? That's just going to happen.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, we obviously, and my job especially is to, I don't want even any injuries or incidents on my crew, and it just comes down to training, like you need the time to train these guys. I mean, we're all pressed. What do you say? We've all got pressures on us for tons, but I won't do it at the expense of someone's safety either. So however long it takes to train someone, I mean, that's how long it takes, and hopefully they pick it up. Some guys pick it up like really quickly, and on they go, and some other guys struggle with some aspects of it all. So training is a big thing. Training people well and giving them the right tools to do the job, that's a big factor.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've had guests on this show say in the past that they feel like, the company or, anyone, any of the superiors seem to sometimes value production goals over safety. So, from obviously only what you can say, would you say that from your experience that seems to be true, not true, or maybe somewhere in the middle?
Somewhere in the middle, I suppose, mate. Not every coal mine is like that. The coal mine I'm working at the moment they're very, very driven on safety, but then we can do safe. We call it safe coal, so we can still get good tons out and doing it safely. So I have worked at a pit beforehand that really do believe they put production over safety. But I don't think it's every coal mine, mate. I think and it can be a culture thing as well. But yeah, I'll probably sit in the middle, mate. I don't think it's every coal mine you ever go to is the same.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned at the beginning that you maybe it was maybe not specifically that you lost love for what you're doing, but that you've maybe you're a little bit dissatisfied, or you're not enjoying it as much, obviously within reason of what you can touch on. Can you say anything about the reasons for that? Or
I think I've working 12-hour shifts. Well, I actually work a 13-hour day in my role, 7 straight. So and I'll do 7 night shifts on that. I've been working away from my family and I'm not the only one in the world that does it, but over 20 years now. My children are grown now, but when I started working away, he was 1 year old, my boy, so they don't know any different.
Yeah.
But I actually see it a lot in the guys now. They really struggle because they're not home every night to their family. They don't get to see their family every night. They come home to a camp, have their meal, go back to their room, go to bed. That's really all you do. There's not much time for anything else. So I think that plays a fair bit on people's mental health, and I just think it wears you down after a while. I mean, yeah, I still enjoy the job, but I just a lot of people just get over the fact that they're away from their family for that long. And I mean, obviously, there's jobs that they work away from their families for a hell of a lot longer. So, it's a different environment. When I started 28 years ago, it's a lot more regulated. It's a lot more, and it's a good thing. It's a lot more safe in some factors, but then other factors, I think, well, we don't train our people we don't get the time to train our people how we need to train them. So, yeah, it's doing the same job for 28 years. It gets a little bit, well, how would you say it, Groundhog Day? It's the same thing
Yeah.
day after day after day after day. So I think that's probably and that is the big factor in mining, is it's so repetitive.
Yeah.
So a lot of guys struggle with it.
That's fair. Yeah. So, I mean, again, from what you have experienced, do you think there's any fixes that, these mining companies can do to, make family life more possible? Or is that just the remoteness of it? Is that just, just a fact of life that's just how it's got to be?
Well, some mines are at that spot where there's no town accessible, so they've got to have the camp on site. Our camp is actually on site, but there's towns that are 30-minute drive to get to work, and a lot of guys drive in and out every day. So it's and it comes down. It's a personal choice. So I decided to drive in from where I live on the coast, so it's just a 3-hour drive out to the mine, and I stay there for 7 days, and that's everyone's personal choice. We have guys that actually live in New Zealand and fly over to work for 7 days and fly home
Wow.
again. So it's a 3-hour flight from New Zealand, and then another hour's flight out to the town where the mine is. So that's their choice. No one, the mine doesn't make you drive in, drive out, or fly in, fly out. You can live in the town close by if that's what you choose to do. So that is a personal choice for us. And because of the 12-hour shifts now, a lot of the coal mining towns, the sense of community in the smaller towns is sort of it's there, but it's it's not how it used to be.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people live on the coast now, they just use the town as somewhere to work, and then they go back to their coastal home.
Yeah. So did you start when you started with I take it fly in fly out, and that culture that wasn't as strong, right?
No, it wasn't big. It only happened in the early 90s. The 12-hour shifts come in, and then that whole drive in, drive out, fly in, fly out sort of things started to happen. And people thought, well, if I'm working for 7 days and I have 7 off, well, I might as well go and live on the coast and live at the beach, or instead of having 7 days off in a small coal mining town where it was probably the facilities and amenities aren't there. Might choose to live somewhere else for schooling, or So I think 12-hour shifts had a big role to play in where people decide to live.
Yeah. And would you also say, I mean, I take it potential effects in these small towns, having less people live in them and, less money flowing into them. I take it do you, when you're, working at these mines, I guess it would probably depend on the area, but do you see any of the, effects of that culture in terms of having less, life, around
Yeah,
or, anything like that?
yeah, certainly. I mean, the town I grew up in has nowhere near the facilities or amenities it had when I was growing up there as a young boy. And I see, the shops and different things that have closed down because people come there for and there's a lot of mining camps around the town now. So people just come there, they do their roster, and then they go back to their town they're living in, and they don't really spend any money in the town. So yeah, it has had a big effect on small coal mining towns.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've said, multiple negative things about, fly in, fly out, drive in, drive out culture, but do you think there's anything good to come out of it? Or is it, because we've just touched on safety getting better, but that's not necessarily, an effect of that.
No.
So yeah, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, it is, as far as my personal circumstances go, moving the town and actually living on the coast was a big factor for me, especially growing up in a mining town. But I, I love growing up in a mining town, but um, I suppose it's just personal choice, mate. It's it it's had a really bad effect on the towns, like to their detriment. But then a lot of people find their work life balance better because they get to go to work in a coal mine, and then they get to go. They got the best of both worlds. They get the money, they get the time off, and they get to live where they choose. So it's as far as communities goes, it's not the greatest thing that's ever happened. But personally, and with a lot of other people, they actually enjoy it. So it's got its negatives and positives, mate.
Yeah. And would you say, in the, in camp, where you guys are, set up and, people flying in and all that, would you say that the amenities and, sleeping arrangements and, everything else is, pretty well done? Or do you think there's still more to, give from what you've,
I think there's always room for improvement, mate. The camp I stay in is probably one of the pick around. It's the coal mine owns it, obviously, and we have a couple of gyms, tennis court, swimming pool, all that sort of stuff. The food's quite good, the rooms they call them bungalow rooms, so they've got a little lounge room, your bedroom separate. They've also got a little patio on the deck on the front, so
Mhm.
it's quite a good place to stay. So we get to keep our rooms. So while you're away for your 7 days, that room's empty. No one stays in it. So you can put all your personal effects in there, make it your own little home. Because at the end of the day, you're spending half your life there. So 6 months, So those sorts of things make a big difference. But I think when you look at, over in Western Australia, the camps are starting to build over in Western Australia now for the iron ore mines and everything else. They're like resorts. But and that's a good thing, when you have people that are working that long away from home and staying in camp that long, you don't want it to feel like a prison. So I think in Queensland, I think the coal mines have got a lot to certain coal mines have a lot to bring their standards up as far as camps go, because sometimes camps can affect people's mental health as well. So when you're sitting in your room on your own, you'd like a little bit of space, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I saw, speaking of mental health, I saw the other day from a unnamed company post that they were saying that their facilities offered, a fair amount of, mental health services or things that would, increase mental, whatever mental health. Do you think that's all? I mean, from what you've seen, is that just like PR jargon? Like, are they actually doing that? Is there anything like that from what you've seen, or is that like basically non-existent?
No, we definitely have a employee assistance program.
Okay.
That's always recommended. We've whenever we have an incident or accident, or someone passes away, it's always pushed forward. And there's also another group that's come around to the mines. They're called actually Mates in Mining. It's like a support group to be able to ring. They do. I know the mine that I work at now does really push it to, if where they're there to help if you need the help. And it's all private and confidential. The company has no access to anything that you say or whatever with them. So I think some mines do it well, like other mines, and other mines don't probably push it as much as they should.
Yeah. Do you think that's enough? I mean, is that, enough for, any sort of, family related, issues or, accident, experiences or anything like that? Is that enough? Or again, I mean, obviously there can be more, but do you think that like within reason of like resources, there should be more?
The employee assistance program, I think, is pretty, and I mean, you can use that for, like you were saying, family issues, anything you need to use that for, you can use it for. So it is pushed pretty hard at our mine. I think maybe coal mines could maybe even have their own counsellor on site that someone could just actually not actually go and talk to in person rather than being on the phone. But they've got a long way to go as far as that goes. But I'm a pretty big fan of what our mine does as far as mental health goes. I think I think they push it pretty hard when there's an issue, and like anywhere, mate, men don't really speak, so
Yeah.
it's a tough one for everyone to get around.
Yeah. Yeah. So switching gears a little bit, you mentioned that your son has also gone into mining. So did you support him in that? Is that something that, you felt strongly in one way about, or, how did you feel when, he said that he was interested, or however that came up?
Yeah, well, it was pretty hard to talk out of, mate. He's always wanted to be a mechanic or diesel fitter since he was 10 years old, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I thought maybe through high school he might change his mind and might go into another trade, but no, he was adamant he wanted to be a diesel fitter, and he thought coal mining was the place to do it in. So I supported him all the way as long as it wasn't underground. Really wanted him to be on the surface. So
Yeah.
um, and yeah, he finishes his. I think January he finishes his apprenticeship, so he'll be a diesel fitter come January.
Yeah. So if someone, right, like if he had said like, hey, I wanted to do underground, or just more generally, right, for someone who's thinking, hey, I want to go into underground, let's just assume in, underground coal, right?
Yep.
Some similar to you, what would you say to them? What would, the first thing that you would mention be?
I think just be ready for a total culture shock, mate. It's a totally different world. It's a totally different language. If you can open your eyes up to that, and you can handle showering with 50 other men,
Yeah.
it's it can be a great job, very satisfying. If you can get over a lot of guys struggle with the repetitiveness. So that's one thing I'd tell them is that you're coming to work and you're going to be doing roughly the same sort of thing day in, day out for 12 hours.
Mhm.
So if you can get past that, you can make a good life out of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. And that's any mining. I mean, these days, we're pretty highly paid. So, and you're virtually only working half the year. So yeah, I'd recommend underground or open cut, but yeah, I really only ever worked in the underground mostly. So yeah, I'd recommend it. But just open your eyes and be prepared for the difference in worlds, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you spoke a little bit about this, but in terms of, something that would, skills or, qualities about someone that you think would make them, good on the job, or potentially things that would make them not good on the job, things, whether it's, a lack of, basically, not having their head on a swivel, or, something else, like, what would you say are the major things that you should look out for and also look for within yourself if you're thinking of joining the industry?
Be prepared for a day's work. That's the main thing. It can be, especially the type of mining we're doing. It's very labour intensive. Um, if you're willing to do a good hard day's work, yeah, definitely for you. Operators, it's all in the what would you say? Some guys have got it, some guys just don't. And timing, all that sort of stuff. Coordination. You'll struggle if you haven't really got that. With the machines we operate, it's all about you've got to have that sort of thing, and being safety conscious.
Yeah.
If you don't go if you're going down there and you don't really give a shit about safety, or you're going to end up hurting somebody else, not yourself or somebody else. So yeah, those sort of things. Hard day's work, safety conscious, and uh, timing with your operation, like as far as coordination goes. And yeah, and if you get a good guy that trains you, you'll learn all those things very quickly.
Yeah. And when you're when you retire and you're, leave mining behind, what's something that you want to be remembered for within, your crew and, everything?
Um, I don't know, willing to do a day's work and hard but fair. Uh, and I've always been that way. I've worked hard, and I expect my crews to work hard as well. So as long as they're doing it safely, that's the main thing. I can't stress it enough because I don't want to be the one to have to explain to their families that they've been badly injured or worse, killed on site under my watch. So um, I'd like blokes. Yeah, that's what I like to be remembered as, hard but fair.
Well, Darryl, thank you so much, man, for sharing all this. I think we've touched on a lot of stuff that hasn't really even been mentioned yet on this podcast. So I really appreciate you sharing everything and being here today. Thank you.
No worries, mate.
So, hope you have a good rest of your day, and hopefully we'll talk later, man. Have a good one. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to Voices from Below. If you or anyone you know wants to be featured on Voices from Below, you can reach us at voicesfrombelowpodcast@gmail.com. That is voicesfrombelowpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope to catch you in the next episode.